Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and I'm going to give you a filter which you can use to dismiss and ignore specific reviews of Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen that are negative for a specific reason. All right, so there's a lot of reviews of Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen. Everybody's going to give their opinion on it, right? But some of these reviews could just be utterly dismissed or ignored as reviews of Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen. Let me give you one that I've heard a lot that I that kind of want to. This is a grouping you can dismiss and ignore as a review of Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen. So here it is. So basically they'll say this isn't a real setting book. It's only 25 pages of setting material, and it should have been should have been 180 pages of setting material. This should be a real setting book. This isn't a real setting book, right? This is just an adventure. Make sure you understand this, right? And they'll say, so it's not a real setting book. It's not really Dragonlance Returned, right? And you can ignore this. And the reason why is this isn't a review of the Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen. This is a review of the actual reviewer, right? And what they're saying is, I don't know anything about modern tabletop role-playing game design. So one of the things that's really interesting is basically here's why they're ignorant. And this should be an ignored review. So here we go. All right, so how do we reach the point where this is an ignored review? All right, this is how. Ben Riggs just released a new book called Slaying the Dragon, and it presented evidence that basically, lore dumps, 180, 250 pages of a new setting sold terribly compared to the core rule books and even modules, right? And progressively, the more setting books you released, the worse they did financially, and there was literally no point in even publishing them, right? Because they were not highly profitable, right? And they're really bad from a profit perspective, right? So when you hear somebody saying, "Hey, why didn't Wizards of the Coast, why didn't Hasbro release this in this tried and true model that is horribly financially unstable," right? So they're not actually. So when you hear this review, Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen isn't a real setting book. It's just an adventure with 15 pages of backstory, right? First of all, what they're not understanding is the adventure is presenting the world, right? But it's doing it in a winsome, useful way that is useful to Dungeon Master and useful to the players. The Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen has new spells for players, new magic items for players, and new species for players, right? And I'm not telling you ignore all negative reviews of Dungeons and Dragons. In fact, I'm being quite responsible, and I'm saying, hey, and I'll give you an example, right? Radiant Citadel. That was a bad D&D canon hardback. Why do I say that? Why do I say that Radiant? Well, because it did not have a single new species, a single magic item, or a single spell for any player. That's a bad D&D canon hardback when you get to the point where you are releasing that to the public, and there's literally no reason in the world any player would ever touch the book, right? That's just bad, right? And so the reality is, so that's the whole of it, right? Is when you hear this review, and there's a lot of them. You're going to hear a lot of them, right? That they're saying, oh, this isn't a real setting book, right? They're not reviewing the product. They were literally reviewing themselves and saying, I don't understand. I haven't been reading the latest, greatest, academic material that's being put out on tabletop role-playing design and on tabletop role-playing game history. I don't understand finance, and more than anything, all this is me protecting my nostalgia journey, right? So anytime you hear that, where people are like, oh, this Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen is not a real setting book, it's not a useless review. It's a powerful review. It's saying, hey, let me explain to you, I, the reviewer, am ignorant of tabletop role-playing game design, ignorant of tabletop role-playing game economics, ignorant of tabletop role-playing game history. I'm just generally ignorant, right? So when you hear those reviews, dismiss them as a review of Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen, but pay hyper attention and say, oh, okay, well, this person's just a nostalgia journey. They ride their nostalgia journey horse, and that's all I'm ever going to get from them is just, ooh, I wish it was 1984 again. So I just wanted to clarify that and start to build a filter for you to find, and you can find good OSR reviews of Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen. But when you hear what I just said, stop listening. That person's not worth your time to listen to going forward, in my humble opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.